Gentlemen, welcome to the Construction Leadership Game Show, where we have construction leaders from across the industry join us to share insights and entertaining anecdotes. I will provide points at some completely random interval to those people who impress me the most. Are we ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
All right. Jamie Dabbs, you are the Vice President of EHS. That stands for what? Environmental Health and Safety?
Got it.
TDIndustries. Talk to me. How do you deliver value to the construction industry?
Oh gosh, you know, I've had quite a long run there. I'm there 15 plus years now. Involved with a lot of different committees, groups, local and across the country, and really just our success of being innovative and trying to help others just grow in the industry, I think has really helped us make a mark.
Love that. We're gonna hit on innovation guaranteed sometime in this conversation. Mr. Stewart Shurtleff, Chief Legal Officer at Osburn Contractors. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you deliver value to the industry.
Yeah, so I've been practicing construction law for almost 20 years, and I commonly would say I've seen it all. Everything that's gone wrong, I've seen it go wrong. And so my give back to the legal community is just by being able to be proactive and say, you don't even know this is an issue yet, but if you don't figure out how to apply the bond breaker here, the blah, blah, blah. And so having a lot of insight into how everything has gone wrong helps me deliver value proactively in this role I have now, as well as having seen all the different styles of communication and persuasion through those 20 years at the firm, being in the litigation space. I have a lot of insight with our project teams on, maybe we should write this a little bit differently, or how do we tweak this communication, or how do we make sure we are communicating in spaces to not only be proactive on the job side, but be proactive in the office in terms of communicating effectively. So a couple of real high-level ideas, but I kind of enjoy doing that. So.
Wonderful. Well, speaking of communication, you are also the co-host of the internationally renowned 1720 podcast. Give us a quick overview of what you do on that show.
Yeah, so Kevin, Carrie, and I started the podcast, it's almost 3 years ago now. We didn't know where we were going or what we were doing, but we knew that we wanted to take our experiences and take some of our passions and impute them to the industry, give back. And that has been just a labor of love in doing that, of having great guests on, such as yourself a couple weeks ago, to talk through their areas of expertise, things that they're passionate about, things that they're working on, to give our listeners something new, something they can take to the office and deploy, something that they can work on, oftentimes at work, but sometimes at home, with their wives, with their kids, and their personal challenges, things of this nature. And it's been something that the construction industry here in the Metroplex has really gravitated towards. And we get lots of great feedback about what we're doing. So it's been, like I said earlier, it's a labor of love for us, and we love doing it. So check it out if you haven't. Yeah.
Absolutely. We'll make sure we plug that at the end. We'll include in the show notes how you guys can get to that as well. Mr. Mario Hernandez, Director of Business Analytics here at PrimeSource. And by the way, big shout out to PrimeSource and our PrimeSource studios. We love being here. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you deliver value to the industry.
Well, thank you. First, thanks for being here with us today. I've been at PrimeSource for about 2.5 years. But before that, I was at BNSF in all types of data analytics positions. The way I give value to my company is I help them collaborate with all the teams across the company and solve problems, right? You got all these problems that customers have. I go in there, my team goes in there, comes up with solutions, and we implement them, right? It's a lot about process improvement. In terms of PrimeSource, what they do for the industry, right? We are one of the biggest distributors of building products, right? We work with all the big major retailers, right? And we help them have merchandise for their customers.
Wonderful. All right, so let's dive in here. We're gonna start with one of my favorite questions. Stewart, I'm gonna start with you. Can you name for me and our audience your favorite leadership movie of all time? And please, in a reasonable amount of time, I realize you have a legal background.
Yeah, so you're gonna
defend your answer.
Yeah, you're gonna get your hand ready for points here. I actually don't watch a lot of movies. So I actually keep a list of all the movies I've seen. There's only like 127 on the list.
You have a list of all the movies you've ever seen?
Yeah, it's a Google sheet.
Are you OCD?
A little.
Okay.
A touch.
I'm afraid of that.
So
Jamie, OCD, good question.
Yes,
Thank you.
great question. But I do have a good answer. I think it's The Godfather. That's a curveball because you have to set aside all the murder and stuff. Yes. But what you get to is, 6 or 7 pull through leadership ideas there. We could talk about them or not, but that's my answer to the question directly. Whether there's a follow-up or not, I'll leave that to you.
There is no world I can even imagine where there's not a follow-up question there.
Sure.
What character in there, maybe non-obvious, is there a character in there or a situation where you say, this is a leadership principle that maybe other people have overlooked? What comes to mind?
Well, there's an obvious answer for me in my role as a chief legal officer, because it's Tom Hagen. He's the guy who's always there, but you never really see him. He's never speaking up, but he's always whispering in someone's ear. And so Tom, to me, is like the quintessential consigliere of just always there, always giving guidance, always giving counsel. Every once in a while, he'll say, I'll take care of that. And so to me, there's lots of moments throughout the movie where Tom leans in, but that's my go-to character when I think about The Godfather, which is a crazy answer, but.
That's a wonderful answer. I'm glad I asked. Robert Duvall plays that incredibly well. What have you learned, Stewart, as you think about your role as a consigliere, right? You're coming to the table, kind of identifying risk, understanding the legal environment. What have you learned about advising other executives or other people above or below you on how to communicate risk, but also not in a way that doesn't freak them out or totally change the behavior that says, we're already great at what we do, however, we need to understand this risk. Any advice you'd have for the audience?
Yeah, so it actually has been a tricky position for me at Osburn over the last 13, 14 months, is because one of the things I used to say at the firm was, if everybody did everything the lawyers said to do, no one would ever do anything, right? Because I would get you bogged down. I'd be like, well, you can't do that, there's too much risk, we can't accept that. And so to me, the thing that's been the most difficult and I think the most rewarding for our teams is me saying, look, I'm gonna say what I wanna say, and then let's figure out how to walk it back into a space that makes good sense from a risk mitigation perspective or from a business perspective. I don't know how to do what you do, but I can tell you that if it goes off the rails, this is what happens. And we had the conversation this morning around an issue. It's just like, here's my recommendation. Why do you think it's bad? And oftentimes lawyers get the rap of being the smartest person in the room, or at least acting like it for the most part. And my approach is completely the opposite. I am the dumbest person in the room. I want to ask all the questions. I want to understand where we're going, what your plan is to get there. And my communication strategy around that is really just to tip the ball. Okay. If I can catch it early, like I said, or if I could catch the risk earlier and just tip the ball, it changes the ultimate trajectory enormously. And close in, if you make it tip the ball, it doesn't seem like much. So that's my space, is to be quiet, listen, advise, Tom Hagen it a little bit, and just try to tip the ball when I can.
Love that. Giving you 3 points there at the end. I love that analogy about kind of just changing the trajectory just a little bit, but also understanding that if you can do that earlier. I often hear people talking about when a plane takes off. If it's 1 degree off course, It doesn't seem like much when you're coming off the runway. 200 miles in the air makes a big difference. So I really like that. Well done. Mario, over to you. Same question. Favorite leadership movie and why?
I'd have to say, Remember the Titans.
Okay.
I really like that movie. Just the whole getting two different groups together and to realize one common goal, I think that was very special. There was part of the movie, I forget the character's name, where he was struggling at offense and they move him to defense, right? Being able to put your employees in the right position to succeed, I think that's so important. And also the camaraderie with all the players, right? The happiness. That just doesn't happen. I mean, that's a leader setting up the environment to have that flourish, right? So having a fun work environment, I think those are three cool things about that movie that shows great leadership.
I like that. What have you learned about really focusing on data, but bringing that to lead more effectively, persuade, influence, when not everyone has that same comfortability with data? I majored in Spanish for a reason. I wasn't good at any sort of math, right? So when people would come to me, I'd be like, oh, I'm not sure that's me, is that somebody else? But obviously, more data and the advance of analytics, I think just in general, specifically in construction, can really be powerful if delivered and communicated in the right way. Maybe what sort of insights or what advice could you have for our audience to kind of do that better?
I think data takes the risk off the decision, in the fact that when you have numbers backing it up, you don't have to say, well, my gut feeling says this, right? A lot of times, a lot of people who've been in the industries for a long time, it's all about gut feeling. I do this, I've seen this before. But when you have numbers backing it up, backing your decision, it's so much easier to say, well, the number said this. You can go back and say, the number said this, so let's go with it, right? It's reassuring.
Wonderful. Jamie, let's jump to you. Same question. Favorite leadership movie all time and why?
I went Tombstone.
Okay.
I think when you think through this movie, right? So Wyatt takes his family out to Tombstone. He wants to set them up for success. He wants to get them to a place where they can all kind of thrive. He gets to work immediately. He starts finding them a hand at a table. He starts making sure everybody is kind of set up for success. He tries to lead everybody away from conflict, but he's like this creative leader that when all the trouble starts to hit the fan, he steps right in. He naturally gravitates to a leadership position. He tries to keep everybody safe. He pulls together this diverse team that can go be very successful and very strategic to go accomplish this goal.
Got it. You, of course, tied in safety to Tombstone there. What have you learned, say maybe changed your mind on over the last 12 months or a little bit longer, whatever. You can figure out the parameters. Change your mind on leading people when it comes to safety. Anything come to mind where you change your mind on in the recent past?
It's probably actually a little further than 12 months back, but I think really this concept around getting away from just being so heavily focused on workflow and thinking through unstructured human data and how humans really like to interact with each other in ways to be more successful. I think getting away from, EHS and really anything that's a compliance-driven role tends to be so black and white, and people just don't function in there, and I think this really helps us work in the gray.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, I'm gonna stick with you right here. We're going to our leadership Mount Rushmore, okay? I'm taking Abe Lincoln off the table.
Gotcha.
Taking Gandhi, if you ever heard of him.
Yeah.
Solid leadership work over there, okay? Taking them off the table, you got 2 spots. Jamie Dabbs, who's filling them on your leadership Mount Rushmore?
I'm going number 1, Martin Luther King Jr.
Okay.
I believe his civil rights work and his long-lasting legacy is incredible. And then number 2, I'm going Ronald Reagan. I think the time around the Cold War, he took a bullet or multiple bullets. I think his leadership work in that time frame was awesome.
Let me ask you about Reagan. MLK is undeniable. For Reagan, he was really known as the great communicator. He was also a former actor, right? And I think for some people that might be challenging. It might say, what was he, was it really him or was he just playing the part? At the end of the day, I would say it doesn't matter. How do you think about kind of communication of safety to really make sure this isn't something that you embody, but you persuade and influence and see that lived out every day by everyone on your team and quite frankly, the people that work with your team?
Well, no matter how bad I would want it, I can't control what happens, the outcome, those closest to the work. And so I think, he's certainly relating back to him, you gotta be a charismatic leader in ways. You gotta rally people to do what you want them to do when you're not there to manage it. And, they've gotta kind of self-motivate. And so I think, irregardless of what his past was, I think that helped him be successful being in just a charismatic.
Yeah. I often think about that, just the roles that we play and how can you be adaptable and flexible, but maintain that authenticity. It's not an easy task, but he certainly did that. I'm gonna jump over to you, Mario, okay? Leadership Mount Rushmore. I got Gandhi up there. I got Abe Lincoln. Who are you gonna add? What 2 faces are you gonna bring
I would
up
add Henry Ford and Steve Jobs.
All right.
Henry Ford, what he did for assembly line, amazing, right? He has one of my favorite sayings, quotes. If I asked my customers what they wanted, they'd ask for a faster horse. And I think that is critical in the stuff I do. If I ask my customers what they want, usually it's just give me a spreadsheet with more cells, right? You have to really ask the question, like, what do you really want? They really want a solution, right? And how to integrate that solution with the other applications they have, right? Really think the big picture for them. And Steve Jobs, just the innovation that he had, right? He disrupted the industry with the iPhone, right? It combines so many things. Combine the camera, the Walkman, and the phone all in one, right? So that's amazing.
I often think about, I think Steve Jobs either referenced it or basically embodied that idea when he talked about, nobody said I really want like an iPhone, right? And he said, sometimes you can't listen to your customers. And that's part of kind of the challenge of innovation is if you just listen to your customers, they're gonna lead you away from true innovation. How do you balance thinking more on the personal side of Steve Jobs? I think there's enough evidence around people that worked with him, many of them who admired him, also say he was often a giant asshole.
Yeah.
How do you think about right? Leveraging authority in some ways to get the results. What do the ends always justify the means? If you come at very angry, intimidating, which seems like your personality, we've spent very, very long time together, but that's what I've gathered. To what extent do you think leveraging emotion and aggression to get the results, how do you kind of balance those with, ultimately, fostering a place where people want to work?
I mean, people always talk about there's certain ways you can lead, right? You can lead by fear and you can lead by motivate, right? He chose the fear, right? And that's the way that he approached it, and it was successful for him. So for us to sit here and be like, well, that's the wrong approach, he got the results he wanted from what he was trying to do, right? So could he have been more successful having a carrot instead of a stick?
Yeah.
We don't know. It's in the history.
Mario, I'll give you a point there, extra. That was more of an aggressive question that you didn't see coming that I threw at you. So, Stewart, let's jump to you, my friend. Mount Rushmore, Gandhi and Abe Lincoln are up there. Who do you got next?
Yeah, so I think in classic lawyer fashion, we need to define what leadership is, because there's a ton of leaders that let a bunch of people off a cliff, right?
Yep.
There's you cannot deny that those folks were leaders. But I'm going to set them aside. I
like it.
Alexander the Great, Napoleon, there's a lot of folks that led a lot of people in the wrong direction. So it was setting those aside. I think about leadership in terms of people who are doing good, and I think about leadership in terms of people who are leaning into really hard situations. I'll avoid the Jesus juke and say almost Jesus juke. The Apostle Paul, to me, is sort of, I think he goes up there, man. He has very clear direction, right? His North Star is very tight as to what he's doing, what he's working on, and how he's going to accomplish it. But you see lots of mentorship through that story too, about leaning in and continuing to write to the churches that he stayed at, specifically to Timothy, where he just leaned into a lot of things that I think, knowing where you're going, knowing what your North Star is, and leaning in and mentoring folks, those are really speak to my heart. So I'll give you a half Jesus juke with the Apostle Paul. The other thought I had is people who really leaned into terrible, hard situations and kept their moxie and kept moving forward. And so I'll say Winston Churchill here. I mean, I don't know that I need to say more. Terrible situations, on the precipice of destruction, and just staying in the fold, right? And trying to be positive and lead and encourage an entire country that just felt like it was over. So when you think about leadership in those two spaces, those are the two I send up there.
Wonderful. I often think about Churchill in that if you look at the course of his career, there was so much failure kind of before and after his shining moment, his season, right? That changed everything. Any advice for maybe audience members that are watching or listening here who are seeing someone who's kind of on the downswing or in the doldrums, and how, in a way that you can, motivate is part of it. But also, it's really hard to motivate other people. They either have it or they don't. Any advice that you've had from coaching people who aren't at the top, but can look to maybe Churchill to say, listen, we do not know what's going to happen in the future, and all these experiences can help us build up to something greater. Any advice?
Well, the first thing I would say is Lincoln's the same story. Failure after lost election after failure after thrust into this position to lead us through a war. And so that's very common in folks who shine through those moments, is they failed a million times to get there. There's a common adage, and I'll butcher it here, but the gist of it is, you think of failure as an end, but in reality, failure is the start to something new with an experience. And so I've done it a million times, right? I made 1,000 wrong decisions, headed in the wrong direction, and having the ability, when you see it in yourself or when you see it in others, to say it's just a new beginning, right? I can remember a story where there was a young lawyer who came into my office, and he had royally screwed something up, right? And he came in contrite and I'm about to get destroyed, and I was like, okay, what did we learn from screwing that up? First, all right, we're not gonna do it again, and everything's solvable. So that was a mistake, here's how we fix it. And in those moments where you have the opportunity to lead through folks who are in your sphere of influence that need assistance, I think those are two good points. Is yelling doesn't help. Let's lean in, acknowledge that failure is okay, and chart a path out of it. Because that helps the other person realize that those are gonna happen over and over again. It helps you realize and them realize there's always a solution. We'll just figure it out and move forward. And the next time we start from experience.
Stewart, I love that answer. I was talking to Jamie off screen earlier, and he shared something with me that made me think of that idea, which is the learning's always optional. You go through something, you can either choose to learn and take something from that, or we can just keep moving, right, and live Groundhog Day. And there's a lot of folks in our industry who do that.
I'll add another thing to that too, and something we commonly say on the office is, don't waste the pain. Like whatever it was hurt, don't waste it. Don't take, learn. It's the same thing. It'd be constantly learning. There's no new ideas, right? You just frame them in different ways that hit people differently. So don't waste the pain. Whatever it was, learn and move.
I love that. Eric, give me a couple points there. That's the title of this episode here. All right, Jamie, last question, my friend. Which music, group, band, singer, all time, living or dead, best epitomizes your leadership style?
I know we talked about this earlier. I struggled with this one because everything I listen to is like wild, I feel like. But I think I went...
Immediately curious, but continue.
So I had to
I
think
have a follow-up question. Should I ask it now?
Yeah, you can. I have a list. I have a list of bands. No, I don't have a list of bands, but no. Everything I listen to is pretty wild. So I think I went... When I think like work related, it's maybe the Beatles. I think
you chose the greatest band of all time for your leadership style.
Yeah,
good choice.
Sorry.
I love it.
I didn't mean it like
Please
that.
continue.
I thought
4 points for Jamie. Pure hubris over here. Carry on, friend.
They were able to kind of change their style, so they would flex to different. Almost like their genre morphed every 10 years, and so they would stay fresh, and they would kind of pull rock music into what it is today.
Because they did. They adapted. It was like the minute everybody got successful and the monkeys come out, they're like, we're doing this, right? And they're always kind of pushing to try something different. So just to look at the span, I don't know, growing up, I was like, 20 years were they together? You're like relatively short amount of time, and to pick up different genres. So, all right. Still an incredible answer. I'm stunned by that. But all right, Mario, we're going to you next. Band, music, singer, all time that represents your leadership style.
Well, mine's a singer, but I'm interested to see if you know him.
Celine Dion? Oh, sorry. Carry on.
Bad Bunny. Do you know Bad Bunny?
I'm very excited about what's about to follow that answer.
Yeah. This is why we do the show, gentlemen. I didn't see this coming. I do know Bad Bunny. Yes.
Bad Bunny's great.
Tell me more.
So this is why I think he epitomizes my style. One, he collaborates with everybody, right? All the young kids now, anytime they come up with a song, you have to collaborate. And that's what you have to do when you do data analytics, collaborate with all different groups. You have to be innovative. Everything's new, right? You might not like it, the kids like it. It's like AI, right? The people have been around for a long time, like, I don't understand this, but the young people understand it. You gotta go with the new stuff. You gotta learn new stuff, right? And 3, he's fun, right? You gotta keep the work environment fun. If it's not fun, you spend more time at work than you do at home a lot of times, right? So you got to keep a lively environment at work to want to have your employees stay there longer.
You essentially named our #1 core value at Hartmann Company. It's fun ain't free, and it never goes on sale. You got to work hard to have fun. I don't know how many points I gave you, maybe 9. I don't even know. Bad Bunny did not see that coming by any stretch of the imagination. Stewart, I don't know where you're coming from here, but throwing out the Bad Bunny from Mario.
Yeah, an excessive amount of points for Bad Bunny. I appreciate that's a curveball, an excessive amount of points.
You can say Taylor Swift.
We'll square up on this.
You going
later.
T-Swizzle,
No,
Stewart?
although
Okay.
She's a great leader. She's got all the people, all the T-Swift.
Look at he's selling you right now.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go with no. Okay, so mine is someone you've never heard of before. This is a guy named Todd Snider, Snider. Write it down. The Todd is an Americana folksy style artist. If you catch him live, he's liable to have no shoes on, harmonica in the front, playing an acoustic guitar, that sort of thing. The reason I say Todd is because on the surface, the music's cool, right? It's the sort of thing like you could just sit in a bar and you hear it and it's cool music. If you listen to it, there's something else, right? The lyrics are telling stories. D.B. Cooper is one of my favorite songs about the story of D.B. Cooper jumping out of the plane. But then there's always another level too, right? If you listen to the lyrics and think about them, you'll learn something. And so that sounds like I'm self-aggrandizing my leadership style here, and I'm not, but I just like, words mean something, and I choose them carefully. And if you want to just hear, if you just want to have over a beer talk, cool. But if you really want to learn something, I'll go as deep as you want to go, and I'll tell you everything there is all at the way at the bottom of that well. And so I think about Todd Snider because he's fun to hang out with. But if you want to get deep, there's something in there. You just need to let's listen for it.
Todd Snider, D.B. Cooper, all sorts of different names I've never heard of before.
You don't know D.B. Cooper? Do you know D.B. Cooper?
Yeah.
Do you know D.B. Cooper? Bang, I got a point for Mario.
He gets points for not knowing? This is crazy.
Do you think he survived that jump?
100%.
Oh,
This is
man.
crazy.
Yeah, that story's wild.
He jumped out of a plane, had $200,000, hijacked a plane, they landed it, they put $200,000 worth of cash on the plane, they took the plane, got all the passengers off, took off again, but he had a parachute, jumped out of the plane over the Pacific Northwest, and they never found him. It's one of America's greatest unsolved mysteries, D.B. Cooper.
Learning so much.
Jamie's got my back.
I'll give you a point
Give
here.
Jamie a point for knowing.
Jamie, don't you tell me who to give points to.
I'm
Jamie,
just
you
saying,
get nothing.
he knew,
You'll
like-
like it. You know what, Mario? I'm going to give you an extra point for
gets
staying quiet.
He got 2
That's
points
right.
for not knowing.
He
You got
did.
none for knowing.
I'm gonna say this. We have really young interns. This is a funny story. We have really young interns, and we were at a happy hour, and they had Bruce Springsteen was on, and I asked the intern, "Do you know who that is?" And she goes, "Sorry, I don't listen to country." So, so that's my answer to that.
That shows you how far country has moved into like pop culture. By the way, did you solve that problem? Because that's a problem. Okay. You were like, ignore it. Do you know who Bad Bunny is? And you were like, let's get some more nachos. Jamie Dabbs, Stewart Shurtleff, Mario Hernandez. This was a blast. I appreciate you. Now is the time where I can guarantee you I have no idea how many points I gave. Many of you gave wonderful answers that I was so engrossed that I just totally gave you no points, and we're not gonna go review the tape. Tell us, who is the champion? Ignore second place. The champion is Mario Hernandez. How close was it? Stewart was how close? 3 behind.
Got all the extra points for DB, not knowing DB
He did.
Cooper. Like that's,
Yes, I was. I mean, we are in the PrimeSource studios,
Yep.
so.
Home field.
No, they gave you got 3 points advantage for home field. Yeah.
Home field advantage.
I know how they rate.
3 points.
Yeah, it's 3
Three
points.
in the hook. You got it. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's my honor. Thank you.